Sampurita pamita paramita balena Vindvansiyo kila kilesa Samohajalang Teneva landa arahang Arahoti namang Vandami buddha mamalang Hadaye tapentva Samanta cakkavalesu Atra gaccantu devatan Sandhammang munirajassa Sunantu sagga mokkadang Dhammasavana kalo ayang badanta Dhammasavana kalo ayang badanta Dhammasavana kalo ayang badanta Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma sambuddhassa Chattaro me bhikkhave dhamma Katame chattaro Atti bhikkhave dhamma Abhinna parinyeya Atti bhikkhave dhamma Abhinna pahatabba Atti bhikkhave dhamma abhinya bhave tabba Atti bhikkhave dhamma abhinya sajjhika tabbati. The most Venerable Nayaka Hamdro, Venerable members of the Mahasangha, friends in the Dhamma, today all of you gathered here to listening to Dhamma in the rainy season. The Los Angeles Buddhist Vihara conducts these kind of activities. Especially we have Dhamma sermon series. This is the very first Dhamma sermon that you are going to listen to. In this Dhamma sermon, we hope to discuss one of the main topics in Buddhism, that Abhinna Sutta, which comes in Chatukka Nipada in Anguttara Nikaya. The discourse of insight, the discourse of the supernormal knowledges. In another way, wonder of wisdom. How we get the results throughout our wisdom. As a wise person, what should we have to do in our life? When we see the Buddha's message, it is very clear that Buddha's purpose was to give us wisdom. Why is that? The Supreme Buddha says very clearly, suffering definitely comes to the person who is ignorant. Suffering never comes to the person who is wise. If we can see the world wisely and mindfully, no one or nothing can disturb our peace of mind. Whenever we are unmindful and ignorant, anyone or anything can disturb our peace of mind. In this situation, according to Buddha's message, all the doctrines that the Blessed One explained for 45 years can be summarized into one sentence, Sacitta Pariyodhapanam. purifying one's mind. Buddha explained all doctrines focusing on purifying our mind. The more we listen to Dhamma, the more we understand our life. The more we understand our life, the more we understand the defilements, negative thoughts that arise in our mind. With this understanding, we are able to overcome negative thoughts from our mind. As human beings, we do everything in the name of happiness. We do everything. Not only we come to the temple, but in our day-to-day life, we study, we earn money, we do job, anything that we do for searching, seeking happiness. But unfortunately, end of our life, we end our life without satisfaction. What is the reason? The reason is very clear. If our happiness depends on outside, it means anytime it can change. Since we depend on outside. If we can control our life by our mind, by our understanding, that means we are on the path of liberation, happiness, freedom, emancipation. The Blessed One explained the way how we make a refuge within us. Here, it is very important to understand our life. Vision is first, then mission. Vision means samadhi, right understanding. Then mission. Mission means what we should do to achieve the real happiness. You know, every place, every institute, we can see vision and mission. But when we see the Buddha's message, it is very clear it has not only vision and mission, but even results. That is very important. Vision, mission, and results. That is very important. In this situation, firstly, we should have clear understanding what happens to our life. This discourse, Abhinna Sutta, the discourse of insight or supernormal knowledges, explains what happens to our life and what we should do with our supernormal knowledge, our insight. The very first thing, Atti Bhikkhave Dhamma Abhinna Parinyaya. There are things that should be understood, completely understood by the direct knowledge, by supernormal knowledge. The very first thing is, Buddha explains what we should understand in this life. Actually, this is Buddhist education. Buddhist education completely focuses on understanding our own life. The more we understand the Dhamma, the more we understand our life. The moment that we listen to Dhamma is that the moment that we understand our life. In this situation, the Supreme Buddha explains, Atti Bhikkhave Dhamma Abhinna Parinyaya. There are things that should be completely understood by direct knowledge, direct understanding, supernormal knowledge. The second one, the Blessed One says, Atti Bhikkhave Dhamma Abhinna Pahatabba. There are things that should be overcome, that should be given up by direct knowledge, by direct understanding. The second one. Next, the Buddha says, Atti Bhikkhave Dhamma Abhinna Bhavetamba. There are things that should be developed by direct knowledge. The third one. The fourth one, Atte Bhikkhave Dhamma Abhinna Satchikatabba. There are things that should be realized by the direct knowledge, direct understanding inside. Dear friends in the Dhamma, this discourse explains the entire message of the Buddha that the Blessed One explained for 45 years. This discourse explains 5 aggregates, 4 noble truths, the dependent origination, and the Noble Eightfold Path. In this situation, if you want to know Buddhism in short, this is a very special discourse that you can refer. Now, we are going to little by little forward. The very first one, Buddha says, Kincha Bhikkhave Abhinna Parinyeya. What should be understood by direct knowledge? There, the Buddha says, Panchupadana Khanda, the 5 aggregates, the 5 grasping aggregates, or the 5 aggregates clinging. That is the very first thing. Next, Buddha says, Kincha Bhikkhave Abhinna Pahatabba. What should be overcome by direct knowledge? That is, Avidya Bhavatanha, ignorance and craving to the process of becoming or existence. Next, the Buddha says, Atte Bhikkhave Dhamma Abhinna Bhavetabba. Kincha Bhikkhave Abhinna Bhavetabba. What should be developed by the direct knowledge? Samatocha Vipassanacha, serenity and wisdom, or concentration meditation and insight meditation. And next, the Buddha says, Kincha Bhikkhave Abhinna Satchikatabba. What should be realized by the direct knowledge? Vidyacha Vimukticha, knowledge and liberation or freedom. If you are very gently spoken, you may have to understand this very short discourse, but this is very, very important. The very first thing, the Supremely Enlightened One says, what we should understand. The 5 aggregates. Our entire life is the 5 aggregates, but it is invisible. Our life is an iceberg. You know, iceberg, we can see a little thin in the surface level, but in the bottom level, which is hidden a lot. In the surface level, we see forms, sounds, smell, so on. But in the deeper level, there is something which is invisible. That is the 5 aggregates. Everyone can see forms, smell, sounds, so on. That is very common thing. But after the Supreme Buddha appeared in this world, he discovered, he explained, and he proclaimed to the world this reality which is hidden in the down level, which is invisible. 5 aggregates. We are unable to see the 5 aggregates. It is invisible. These 5 aggregates are discovered and explained by the Blessed One. Here we should understand the nature of 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates means Rupa, forms, Vedana, feeling, Sanya, perception, Sankhara, mental formations, and Vijnana, consciousness. These 5 things are the the five aggregates. These five aggregates work in various levels. By listening to Dhamma, we can understand it. In the very first experience, Buddhism has explained these five aggregates. When we see something, when we hear something, when we contact something, at the very first moment, we can contact something, we can see something, we can taste something, we can hear something, we can smell something, but very important thing, we can't understand something, we can't know something. Seeing and knowing are different. We can see something through our eye consciousness, but we can't understand something through our eye consciousness. We can hear something through our ear consciousness, but we can't understand, we can't realize something through ear consciousness. We can contact something in the present moment, in the primary level, in the vipaka level, result level. But when we understand it, the very first experience is gone. This is the reality. The very first experience, we say that panchakhanda, the five aggregates, that works in the primary level. The primary level experience is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. That is neither pleasant or unpleasant. That is neutral. That is just a vipaka or result. But it is very instant. It arises and immediately ceases. But we mostly understand it after our five consciousnesses have ceased. This is the reality. The very first experience is neutral. It is pure. That is why the Blessed One says, this vijnana or consciousness, pabassaramidam bhikkhave chittam. The consciousness or mind is very pure in the very primary level experience, in the vipaka level. But the very important thing, we are unable to stay in the present moment, the very first experience. It is instant and also it ceases very fast. And we usually understand something after it has ceased. Then we come to the next level, that is panchupadana khanda or sakkaya. The five grasping aggregates or the clinging to five aggregates, that is panchupadana khanda. When we understand something, the very first experience has ceased. That is said as panchupadana khanda, the clinging to five aggregates or the five grasping aggregates that consist with ignorance. We mostly come to the samudayanta, the corner of arising. When we see something, we mostly think that there is something outside at the moment. Our experience is like a food that we take. When we eat something, having in a plate, when we taste something, we immediately look at the plate. When we taste something, we may think that I am tasting something which is in the plate. Is it correct? At the moment, if you are tasting something, it is not in the plate, it is in the mouth. The food which is in the plate is very beautiful. The food which is in the mouth is beautiful? No, it is not beautiful. But we mostly ignorant in this reality. Our entire life is like that. When you see something, if you look at outside thing, it means like your plate with your food. When you understand something, it is like the food that is in your mouth. We can apply this example for everything. This is the place where we should confident in what the Blessed One realized. Saddhati Tathagatassa Bodhi. The very first experience is neutral. The second experience is with ignorance. It means after it ceased, we think that still it is happening in the physical world. That is the nature of ignorance. If we are ignorant, it means we are in the samsaric circle. Avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnanam, vijnana paccaya nama rupam, so on. With the arising of ignorance, mental formations arise. With the arising of mental formations, consciousness arises. Vijnana paccaya nama rupam. With the arising of consciousness, mentality and corporeality arise. We end this circle, bhava paccaya jati. With the arising of bhava, or the process of becoming, we come to the birth, bhava paccaya jati. If we come to the birth, it means we have something, we have some bonus. What is that? Jati paccaya jara marana soka parideva dukkha domana supayasa uppajjanti. If we are ignorant in this situation, birth arises. As the result of arising birth, we face sorrow, lamentation, grief, pain, so on. This is the nature of our life. Whenever our mind depends on outside world, outside things or persons or your children, it means we are ignorant. It means we are in the samsaric circle. If we want to overcome this samsaric circle, we should come to the jnanacharya, the behavior of wisdom. The very first experience is vijnanacharya, the behavior of consciousness. The second one, which consists with ignorance, is ajnanacharya, the behavior of ignorance. The third one that we should create with our wisdom is that jnanacharya, the behavior of wisdom. What is that? Avidyāyatveva asesa viraga nirodha sankhara nirodho sankhara nirodha vijnana nirodho, so on. With the complete cessation of ignorance, mental formations cease. Sankhara nirodha vijnana nirodho. With the complete cessation of mental formations, consciousness ceases. This is the way that we understand five aggregates. In this very first step, or Panchupadana, the five aggregates explains the two things. What is that? The arising of suffering and the cessation of suffering. The arising of suffering is that dukkha samudaya satya, the noble truth of the arising of suffering, the noble truth of the cause of suffering. And the second one, nirodha, cessation, the nirodha satya, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. In this first level, in the Panchupadana Khanda, the five aggregates explains how the world arises and how the world ceases. This is the very first thing. The second one, if you have this understanding, we know how suffering arises and how suffering ceases. In this situation, the second step, the Buddha says, Atti bhikkhave dhamma abhinya pahatabba. There are things that should be given up, which are avidya bhavatanha. ignorance and the clinging to the world, the craving for the existence. How do we do it? Whenever we are suffering, whenever we get upset, be sure that we depend on outside. We are in the corner of arising, samudayanta. That is the sign of ignorance. If we are suffering, it means we are in this corner. If we want to overcome suffering, we have to overcome this misunderstanding, ignorance or delusion. That is why Buddha explained, we have to overcome ignorance and bhava, or the process of becoming. Ignorance is very clear, that unknowing of the Four Noble Truths. Dukkha aññānaṁ, dukkha samudaya aññānaṁ, dukkha nirodha aññānaṁ, dukkha nirodhagamini patipada aññānaṁ. Unknowing of dukkha, samudaya, nirodha, magga. Unknowing of the Four Noble Truths. If we don't know the procedure of this nature of our life, we are in the corner of the existence. As the result of this misunderstanding, what happens to us? We think there is a material world outside. That is bhava. That is the nature that we are ready to come back to the world. If we are in the karma level, the sensual level, it means we are ready to come back to the karma loka, the sensual world. If we are in the rupa level, the formal level, rupavachara level, it means we are ready to go to a rupavachara loka, rupavachara brahma loka, formal brahma worlds. If our mind is in the arupavachara level, formless level, it means we are ready to go to the arupavachara brahma realms. But we usually in the sensual world, kama loka. What is the kama loka? We think there is a world outside. Dear friends in the Dhamma, we are discussing here the ultimate truth in Buddhism. This is not the conventional truth. When we explain the karmic law, Buddha says, kammasakom hi kammadayado kammayonison. When we do something with our intention, we will have the same results. We are the owner of our karma. That is only the conventional truth. The world goes in the conventional truth, but we here are talking about the ultimate truth, absolute truth, paramattha satya, which helps us to overcome the sansaric circle completely. For that, when we come to this level, it is very clear the Buddha's advice. Kammasakarako natti vipakassaka vedako. There is no person who does karma. There is no person who receives the results of karma. That belongs to the ultimate truth. When you listening to the Buddha's message, or when you read the Dhamma article or discourse, you should know that this discourse or sermon belongs to the conventional truth or absolute truth. That is the very first skill that we should have. If we don't have this skill, we are confused in everywhere. In this discourse, completely we discuss the absolute truth. What is the nature of our life, and how suffering arises, and how suffering completely ceases. The very first thing is understanding the five aggregates. Whatever we experience, it means five aggregates have arisen. Not only they have arisen, but they have ceased too. Understanding the five aggregates is the Buddhist education. What is the Buddhist education? Education about our life. The more we listen to Dhamma, the more we understand the Dhamma. The more we understand the Dhamma, the more we understand the qualities of the Dhamma. Swakhato Bhagavata Dhammo. Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One. Sanditiko, visible results. Akaliko, immediately effective. After we listening to Dhamma, we can see this Dhamma through our own life. That is the very important thing. Now you can decide, you can understand whether you are in the corner of arising or you are in the corner of cessation. If you are in the corner of arising of your experience, your mind is fixed in the outside material world. It is like you are looking at your plate with your food that you are taking. When you are tasting something, you think that now I am tasting the food which is in the plate. If it is true, you can think like that. You can enjoy your food. But if we enjoy this life with ignorance, we have to suffer. We can enjoy the world. Even Arantas have enjoyed the world, enjoyed the life without ignorance. That is the very important thing. Buddhism never says us to getting rid of satisfaction or gratification, enjoyment. Buddhism never rejected it. We can enjoy the life. We can enjoy our experience. Even Arahantas have enjoyed the environment, the persons, while they were experiencing the world. But they have done it with mindfulness and wisdom. That is the difference. But we mostly enjoy the world with ignorance. That is the problem. That is the cause of suffering. Whenever we are enjoying with ignorance, it means we depend on outside. Our happiness is decided by the outside world. Anytime, outside world can decide whether we are happy or unhappy. Do you like to be controlled by the outside? No one likes to be controlled by the outside. Buddha explained his message for liberation, vimukti. What is the vimukti? Liberating from the outside world. We take our control in our hand by listening Dhamma, by understanding Dhamma, by practicing Dhamma. How do we practice Dhamma? According to what the Buddha explained. The foundation of our experience, our practice is that mindfulness. The second step, Buddha says, Atti bhikkhave dhamma abhinya pahatabba. We should give up ignorance and bhavatanha and the craving to the world. When we overcome ignorance, how do we overcome ignorance? We should come to the end of the cessation. We should come to the corner of the cessation. When we see something, we can contact it in the present moment, but when we understand it, the very first experience, I form, I consciousness, I contact, everything has ceased. We understand something through our mind consciousness. Now you are looking at me. If you think that this person is at this moment outside, now I am experiencing, it means you are ignorant. What is the reality? What is the wisdom? When you understand this person, the very first experience has is you understand with your own understanding. It doesn't mean that there is no material person outside. There are materials outside, but it depends on our senses. Our senses depends on our present mental situation. Our mental situation depends on our ignorance and other things. We experience the world according to our senses. If our senses are very rich, we can understand a lot of things. If our senses are very poor, we have to experience a little. This is the reality. However, no matter whether there are material world outside or not, the very most important thing, we can never understand something with the forms at the present moment. That is why Buddhism says, Na panchahi vijnanehi kinchi dhammam pativijanati. We are unable to recognize anything through 5 consciousnesses such as eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, so on. Sabbe dhamma mano vijnana dhatuya vinyeya. Everything should be realized by mind consciousness. This is the place where we can see the visible results of the Dhamma. After you have this understanding, you don't need to depend on even this speaker. After you receive this understanding, you don't need to depend on even the Buddha, even the Arya Sangha. You completely depend on your own understanding, your wisdom. This is the very important thing. And also the third level, Atti bhikkhave dhamma abhinya bhave tabba. There are things that should be developed by direct knowledge, the supernormal knowledges. What is that? Samatocha vipassanacha. Serenity and insight, or concentration meditation and insight meditation. As a wise person who was born in this world, the highest practice that we can perform in this life in the Buddha Sasana, that samatha and vipassana, the duration of concentration and insight meditation. Our success depends on our happiness. Our happiness depends on getting rid of suffering. The getting rid of suffering completely depends on the duration of samatha and vipassana, concentration and insight meditation. In short, metta bhavana and vipassana bhavana, insight meditation, anicca bhavana. There are 40 meditation techniques that we can see in Buddhism in samatha bhavana, such as metta bhavana, anapanasati bhavana, buddhanusati bhavana, so on. There are 40 meditation techniques that we can see in Buddhism, what the Blessed One explained. Friends in the Dhamma, we are so fortunate. We can see the Buddha's understanding, his wisdom, his discovery, his great discovery. He has pointed out the path for the liberation. Little by little, we should develop our concentration meditation. Having virtue or sila, discipline in our speech and behavior. If we can practice concentration meditation, keeping our attention in the present moment, if we can contemplate on a particular wholesome object again and again, we are able to concentrate our mind. As the result of practicing concentration meditation, we can overcome hindrances such as sensual pleasure, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, skeptical doubts. These are the negativities, hindrances that disturb our peace of mind. As the result of reducing these hindrances from our mind, we can make a Brahma realm in this immediate life. Physically, we are in the human realm, but mentally, we are in the Brahma realm. The Supreme Buddha has pointed out the way how we make a Brahma realm in this immediate human life. And the purpose of practicing samatha is that reducing hindrances. When these hindrances nivarana reduce, we can see the world. Samahito bhikkhave bhikkhu yatha bhutam pajanati. He who gains concentration sees the world reality as it is. What is the nature of the world? Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Impermanence, dissatisfactory, and selflessness. These are the real characteristics of the world. And if we are confident in how suffering arises and how suffering ceases, how suffering arises. When we are ignorant, we depend on outside. It means we are controlled by the outside world. Even if we depend on our physical body, our hair, our face, be sure it means we are dependent on outside. We are controlled by our physical body. When this physical body changes, we are suffering. If we understand this reality, we are afraid of depending on outside. That is why we dedicate our entire life for this practice. Whenever we are away from this practice, what happens to us? Outside world decides our suffering or happiness. Nobody likes to be controlled by the outside world. For that, we should make a refuge within us. What is the real refuge that we can gain in our life? Living according to the mindfulness explained by the Blessed One. Being aware of our body and mind. In Buddha's time, one day, Bhante Chunda came to Bhante Ananda, having a sorrowful message. Venerable Chunda says that, Venerable Ananda, our great brother, Dhammasenadipati Sariputta passed away. Venerable Ananda was so sad. Having this sad news, Venerable Ananda went to the Buddha. Then he was so upset, and Venerable Ananda was so sad. He said the news to the Supreme Buddha. Then Buddha asked, Ananda, are you worried? Are you sad? Are you suffering? What are you suffering? Did Venerable Sariputta take your Sila, Samadhi, Panya, Vimukti, Vimutijnana? Has he taken your spirituality, your Sila, virtue, concentration, wisdom, liberation, and understanding? Did he bring? Did he take? No, Bhante. He didn't bring. He didn't take anything. But he has helped us a lot. That is why I am so sad. At that moment, the Buddha says, Ananda, I have explained to you several times, we have to give up everything in this world. That is the nature of this life. In this situation, I have advised you to take a refuge within you. Atta Deepa Ananda Viharata Atta Sarana Na Anya Sarana. Dhamma Deepa Ananda Viharata Dhamma Sarana Na Anya Sarana. Dwell Ananda with yourself as an island, as a refuge, with no other refuge. Dwell Ananda with Dhamma as an island, as a refuge, with no other refuge. Then Buddha explains how we make a refuge within us. The path is to become the refugees that live in according to mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness is the way how we take a real refuge within us. We have to give up everything, dear and near. In this situation, the Buddha has explained a refuge that we can create, we can make in our life, that mindfulness. Mindfulness is the mission. What is the vision? Vision is how suffering arises and how suffering ceases. Whenever we are ignorant, whenever we think that there is something outside at this moment, that is the nature of ignorance, that is the nature of that suffering comes to our life. Whenever we think that when I understand something, the very first experience has already ceased. I understand these forms, sounds, smell, taste and touchings through my mind consciousness. Then our minds are not fixed in the outside material world. As soon as we see something, immediately we come to the understanding, we come to our inside. We know very well, if we are ignorant, we depend on outside. It means outside world can disturb our peace of mind. We don't like that others disturb us. We make a refuge that we live in mindfulness. Every moment, every second, we should be mindful. If not, we are ignorant. It means we depend on outside. It means outside persons and things can decide our happiness or suffering. In this situation, based on mindfulness, if we can increase the duration of concentration and wisdom, samatocha vipassanacha, that is the real success, real practice in our life. Even though we are well educated, even though we are very rich, although our children are well educated, we are not successful. Our success depends on our happiness. Our happiness depends on the duration of practicing samatha and vipassana based on mindfulness. In short, Buddha has explained the path. This is the mission, samatha and vipassana. But we can expand it as sila, samadhi, panya, virtue, concentration and wisdom. Again, we can expand it as, what is that? The Noble Eightfold Path, Aryattangika Magga. That is very familiar to us. We should dedicate our entire life for practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. We always think about the Four Noble Truths. What is that? Samma Ditti, right understanding. And we develop positive thoughts, right intention or right thoughts, Samma Sankappa, Nekkama Sankappa, Avyapada Sankappa, Avihinsa Sankappa. We use our speech correctly, Samma Vacha, right speech. As soon as we have this vision, we can see some differences in our life. We can see a very vast difference in our life. What is that? Discipline in our speech. Be sure. One of the signs that you have understood the Buddha's message and also you trust in what the Blessed One explained, that our discipline in speech comes to the highest level. Dhammi vakata aryo tunhi bhavo. If we speak something, it consists with very valuable and meaningful words. If not, we are silent. Noble silence. Before we start Samma Kamma, right action, right speech works. That is very important. Our silence is noble with this understanding. Then Samma Kammanta, right action. We do everything mindfully, physically. If we do some activities physically, we do everything mindfully. If we speak something, we think it again and again whether it is correct. And Samma Vayama, right effort. We always try to overcome negativities and we always practice good deeds. Our energy, Samma Vayama. Samma Sati, right mindfulness. Mindfulness is divided into four. The contemplation of body, Kayanupassana. The contemplation of feeling, Vedanupassana. The contemplation of consciousness, Chittanupassana. The contemplation of phenomena or mental formations, Dhammanupassana. These are the four areas of mindfulness explained by the Supreme Buddha. We are fully aware of our body and body posture. And we are aware of our feelings, no matter whether they are painful or happy or neutral, we are aware of our feelings. Not only we are aware of that, we are aware of that they are arising and ceasing every moment. And Chittanupassana, the contemplation of consciousness. Now we are fully aware of our consciousness. When mind is angry, we immediately understand, now my mind has anger. When mind is conceited, we immediately understand how my mind has conceit. When we are ignorant, when mind is ignorant, we immediately understand that now I have ignorance. How do we know that I have ignorance? If our mind is fixed in outside material world or things or persons, that is the sign of ignorance. The opposite of ignorance is that wisdom. What is wisdom? We immediately look at inside when we experience something through our senses. And finally, we think that, we understand that vimuttang va chittang vimuttan chittanti pajanati. When mind is liberated, we understand it. Now my mind had liberated from outside world. Not only outside, even inside mind consciousness too. We immediately understand it. We understand the nature of our mind. As a result of this path, we come to the fourth step, Atti Bhikkhave Dhamma. Abhinna Sutta. There are things that should be realized by direct knowledge, by supernormal knowledge, which are that Vijjaja Vimukti, knowledge and liberation. What is the knowledge? Knowledge is that Four Noble Truths. You know, when you refer the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, according to Dhammanupassana, there you can see Four Noble Truths. We start our spiritual journey with the understanding of listening to the Four Noble Truths as Sutame Jnana, the wisdom of hearing. Now we can come to the conclusion, Bhavaname Panya, the wisdom of meditation. In Dhammanupassana, the contemplation of phenomena, we realize the Four Noble Truths, Dukkha, Samudaya, Nirodha, Magga. And here, Buddha says, as a wise person, the highest qualities that we can realize are Vijjaja Vimukti, knowledge and liberation. Knowledge means understanding the Four Noble Truths. Liberation means liberate from the five aggregates, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. We started the spiritual journey with the understanding of five aggregates. We come to the conclusion, the end, with the realizing the five aggregates. Rupa, form, Vedana, feeling, Sanya, perception, Sankhara, mental formations, and consciousness, Vijnana. These five things cannot be divided. They arise together, they cease together. We can change them. We have to realize them. When we understand and realize these five things, we can liberate from the attachment to these five aggregates. Then we don't depend on outside, even we don't depend on in our consciousness too. When we come to the end, we completely depend on the Dhamma. It means our understanding, Samatha and Vipassana, or finally, insight meditation. We see only thing which happens every moment is that arising and ceasing of five aggregates. This is the place we are liberating. We come to the realization of knowledge and liberation. This is the liberation. This is the freedom. This is the emancipation. This is the enlightenment. This is the Nibbana, explained by the Blessed One. Again, we can summarize this discourse, Abhinna Sutta, the discourse of supernormal knowledges. Abhinna means what we should do with our wisdom. Our wisdom can be divided into three. One of them is Sutame Jnana, the wisdom of hearing. When we listen to Dhamma, we have understanding the world and our life. That is Sutame Jnana. Then we think this reality again and again. That is Chintamaya Panya, the wisdom of thinking or contemplating. And Bhavaname Panya, the wisdom of meditation, the duration of Samatha and Vipassana, serenity and insight, or concentration meditation and insight meditation. Our Supreme Buddha, our spiritual teacher, pointed out the way how we give the highest value to our life. Even though we have a lot of degrees or educational qualifications. Actually, we are not successful. If we can understand our life and especially our mind, that's the real education. Since it helps us to overcome suffering, it helps us to make a refuge within us. This is the real refuge that we can make in our life. Again, we can summarize this discourse. The very first thing is Atti Bhikkhave Dhamma Abhinna Parinyeya. There are things that should be completely understood by the direct knowledge, which is the five aggregates. Atti Bhikkhave Dhamma Abhinna Pahatabba. There are things that should be given up by direct knowledge, which are avidya bhavatanha, ignorance and craving to the existence. Atti bhikkhave dhamma abhinya bhavetabba. There are things that should be developed by direct knowledge, which are samatocha vipassanacha, concentration and wisdom. Atti bhikkhave dhamma abhinya satchikatabba. There are things that should be realized by the direct knowledge, which are vidyacha vimukticha, knowledge and liberation. I think you are given a handout too. You can refer it and you can read it again and again. You can improve your understanding. Finally, if we trust in this message of the Blessed One, we should dedicate our entire life to achieve these goals. What should we learn? What should we overcome? What should we practice? What should we realize? Finally, we should trust in that our complete success depends on the duration of practicing samatha and vipassana. From moment to moment, from minute to minute, we should increase the time, duration that we practice concentration and insight meditation. We can practice loving kindness meditation, contemplating on thus, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful, again and again. Or we can practice breathing meditation, breathing in, breathing out, slowly and mindfully. Using these concentration meditation techniques, we are able to keep our attention in the present moment for a long time. When mind gains concentration, we can see the world as it is. We reflect on impermanence. This discourse explains Panchupadana Khanda, five aggregates. If we understand the five aggregates, we understand the Four Noble Truths. If we understand the Four Noble Truths, we understand the dependent origination, Patisampada. If we understand the Patisampada, the dependent origination, we understand the Dhamma. Your Patisampadam Passati is for Dhammam Passati. He who sees the dependent origination sees the Buddha. Your Dhammam Passati is Somam Passati. He who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. He who sees the Dhamma is confident in what the Buddha realized. Then he completely dedicates his life to practice this path while he is doing his day-to-day activities. We know very well, even though we have a lot of things, persons, we have to leave them one day. Even our appearance of our physical body, we have to leave. In this situation, the real protection, refuge that we can make in our life is that practicing Dhamma, especially practicing Samatha and Vipassana, based on mindfulness. Okay, friends in the Dhamma, this is the discourse in short. By the power of this spirituality that you acquired throughout listening to Dhamma, may you be well, happy and peaceful. May your all spiritual goals meet with success. Finally, may all of us attain the final bliss of liberation. Dukkham pantāca niddukkhaṃ Bhayam pantāca nibbhayāṃ Sokham pantāca nissokāṃ Hontu sabbe pipānino.